There are 45,000 voluntary organisations in Scotland employing 130,000 paid staff and benefiting from the activity of 1.3 million volunteers. Enough people to fill the National Stadium 25 times over. Charities, social enterprises and voluntary organisations achieve their goals through good teamwork and by keeping their eye on the ball as they work to meet the needs of individuals and communities. They're supported in their work by a range of voluntary sector umbrella organisations, councils for voluntary service, volunteer centres, social enterprise networks and national intermediary organisations, all of which help frontline voluntary organisations to develop and grow and represent their interests with government, the private sector and the general public. The voluntary sector in Scotland has an annual income of £4.1 billion, yet over 60% of regulated organisations have an income of less than £25,000 per year. The sector ranges from national players delivering public services on a large scale to small grassroots organisations which rely on volunteer effort. Together, they make our country a better place to live, but individually their support needs are very different. The Supporting Voluntary Action programme, which has been made possible thanks to an £8 million investment from the Big Lottery Fund, aims to strengthen local support for the voluntary sector. As part of this programme, 2 think tanks involving local and national organisations are working together to develop a shared vision, purpose and direction for the voluntary sector support infrastructure in Scotland. In May, over 120 of the sector's key players gathered to shape the future together. No easy task. Here's what they had to say.
Voluntary sector has been my lifeblood for the past 20 years.
I think it's important that we do get together. You meet a lot of people, you hear ideas. The third sector, voluntary organisations are really important, play a major part in the delivery of services in Scotland, and I think we really do need to look at how we do it and think of the best ways forward, especially in the current economic climate.
Today's event is really about, people from the sector identifying solutions for the sector.
Because reflection and thinking about what you're doing and how you might do it differently is always important.
Yes, I always come away from these things thinking, oh, I never thought about it that way. So it's a learning curve.
I'm mainly here just to listen, to see what I can pick up and see if I can take anything back to our own volunteer centre in North Lanarkshire.
Any event that brings people together to actually talk, to be in dialogue, is a really positive move forward. So,
influencing some of the future decisions that will be taken in the voluntary sector, and I hope that I can influence some of those decisions to target volunteering to the individual rather than overall to organisations, as seems to be some people's preference.
Having started the process of being in a think tank, my mind has been vastly expanded by the amount of organisations out there, the expertise and the opinions on the go. So I'm hoping we get a huge amount more.
I feel really strongly that these kind of days are so important. They might seem like a million miles away from the day-to-day work, but I think it's really important that we all take time to reflect on what we're doing and be challenged on what we do.
Think young, think community and think forward.
Action, not words.
I would say, if it's not broken, don't mend it.
Well, someone there articulating a vision clearly and consistently, not faffing around really.
The biggest fear, I think, of the think tank is who will own the report at the end, and is it going to be another document that's put on a shelf?
Be brave, be courageous, don't give us any half-hearted recommendations. I think go for a big picture view that will deliver real change.
What we want out of this is some tangible outcome that affects the majority of voluntary sector organisations' clients.
The vision and purpose and those sorts of statements are great, but what's really needed is a timetable of actions.
Well, I think my hopes for today is that whatever's discussed, we come up with something that we can take forward, and it's not just a case that we're talking for talking's sake.
There's a cohesion and a glue that is necessary in infrastructure in Scotland, and it is very, very messy and it probably needs simplified. As to who's going to do that, maybe the think tank's a good way forward rather than it being the government.
So the government have to take the lead and be really strong about how important the voluntary sector is, and that's why this report, I think, has to be really strong as well, because it has to influence the government to really be behind us and be our champions with local authorities.
I think we need a robust voluntary sector. We need to support organisations for groups on the ground. As the support organisations grow, we can't forget the groups on the ground who need the support.
To make sure that the organisation is pinned to the community, as low down the ladder as it possibly can be, and that the volunteer is put at the centre of the organisation to make sure that whatever they get is enrichment and fits into exactly what the community needs and what that person seeks to get from volunteering.
Concerns already that it's a lot about processes and we're on this journey and, you know, making a virtue out of not having decided anything except by a great long process. I think we've got to be more snappy, more action focused, come out with something that's bold and effective and translates ideas into action.
I think it's important that a clear, strong message is sent, not just to the public and the private sector and government. I think it's equally important that we get a very strong message back to the third sector saying, we are the sector.
I think that they're trying to, and it was said at the group I was in, trying to fit us all into little boxes, and we just won't fit into little boxes. That's not how we've evolved, and I don't think we could function the way as well if we were put into little boxes and told how to perform.
But for the local organisations, I think there's just too much clutter, and that one good thing that could come out of this is a real sense of who does what, you know, why they do it, and where the support actually lies for voluntary organisations in local communities.
I would like it to come back with a statement that supports the variations and the differences that are out there in what's, I suppose, called the third sector.
But I think overwhelmingly the report has to be something that's positive and inspiring, because the people that read it have to get a sense from it that the voluntary sector is really important, it's diverse, and that it's actually crucial to the future of community development and supporting communities.
In 2009, because of the various external pressures on the sector, we'd like to see some kind of decisions being made about the way forward.
I think for the future that I see that the volunteer centres and the CVSs are all combined, do you know what, in delivering a service rather than competing with one another for funding, so it's a one-stop shop.
I really feel at the moment we're too diverse. I think we're stretching ourselves too far. So I'd like to see a wee bit more kind of roping in, just to kind of streamline the service as well, to make sure it does survive.
I was saying that the point is, if you put your full stops into it, is that its positive outcomes instigate necessary transformations. So that's the point. And if you're not prepared to speak up, don't moan about it.
Just stay with it, we're nearly there.
Very often events or initiatives such as this have a sound intention, but they're very difficult, so difficult actually to implement them in a way that the volunteer, the individual volunteer, sees some benefit out of it, or it actually achieves a positive purpose for a community.